I was talking with somebody at a conference and we were looking at Comply Assistant, and I'm like, yeah, where you do all of this and then you can go see all your latest activities, see what you're doing. And swear to God, dude looks at me and he goes, well, now they'll know I'm not doing anything. And I was like, okay, nice to meet you.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 472 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Carden. Good afternoon, Donna.
Good afternoon, David. We're back to afternoon. We're hopping around.
Yeah. We are hopping around for sure. So got to get some recordings done because you and I are all over the place next few weeks.
It's getting harder and harder to consistently do this. But I mean, come on, we've done it a long time.
I know. It has been a very long time. Yeah, I think I talked to somebody the other day, Rob Pruder, you know him, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he said, have y'all hit 500 yet? I'm like, no. But we were really close.
Mm-hmm.
So he asked if we were having this big, huge party and all this kind of stuff at 500. And I said, it's a good idea. I think you should fly us out. You should fly us out to LA. We'll have a big old shindig.
I think that's a good excuse for a party.
Yeah, there you go. So, we'll have to start. Start thinking about that because that's, I guess, half a year away, something like that. 6 months. Wow.
Yeah,
it's crazy. All right. So today, good thing that you're on audio. For those of you watching on video, you get to see Donna show her SBOM.
Yuck.
So we'll be talking about the software bill of materials and what it is, why you might want to be asking for it, and how it has some impact on your organization, because it definitely does.
Well, yeah, you need to at least have it on your radar.
Yeah. It's one of those things where we're probably early in the game before it becomes something that's, prevalent.
That's kind of our job.
Yeah, we do that quite often. It's like somebody will say, here you go, 2 years from now, somebody will say, y'all need to talk about SBOM. Here we did. We talked about it 2 years ago.
Yeah, I know, right?
So here we go. But first, we want to say thanks to those of you who listen and who give us reviews. And we have a few donors. We appreciate those. If you want to know more about what we do, you can go to helpmewithhipaa.com. You can find Donna and my day job and how you can engage with us should you want to. We are there 24/7, never sleep.
Yeah, right.
All right, Donna, show me your SBOM.
Yeah. Well, this thing has kind of been out there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
This discussion of SBOM. And it's come up in multiple episodes, but we haven't really done one specifically explaining why you should care, what is it, what you should do about it. It's time now to truly have this on your radar, because I'm starting to see discussions of, okay, is it time to start including this in vetting questions for the vendors? And is it time for, this vendor actually does have one. I should be able to use it and get the value out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as they're available, you want to be able to use them or make sure somebody's using them. And it's really handy to see, are your software people paying attention? If your vendor goes, what's an SBOM? Ding, 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 ding. Yeah. So anyway, it's been out there more with medical devices where there's software that makes the medical devices work. And the FDA has said, you're going to need an SBOM for these because, this is like operating on people. It's running with people, not scissors. And So, they have had this in place for a few years now, that it's been becoming a bigger and bigger issue. And you now can go attest that you have these things, and we've touched on it. But just like everything else, the times they are changing. And it's going to become a bigger and bigger tool from both a support standpoint as well as a vetting standpoint. And so let's understand what those are. So the SBOM, the software bill of materials, it's your recipe for making your software.
Yeah, it's your ingredients.
Mm-hmm. It's all your ingredients. And, if some of the people who have allergies and all this other stuff, they have to read the ingredients on the box, and if something's left out, people go into anaphylactic shock or something. That's the concept that we're looking for, is that we want to know from a software standpoint what's in it, because people don't understand how much is in there.
Yeah, you're right.
It's not like I just write all the code. I mean, used to back in the day, you would use a few things, maybe, but generally you wrote everything. Then you started with, we're going to give you APIs into the system pieces so you can use those and talk directly to it. And then it was, well, we're going to give you an API to this software and that. Well, we're going to write these packages and then you can just use this code. And okay, now everybody's going to use this. So going back to the log4j discussion, where it was a tool that everybody was embedding into their software. And when it had a problem, you didn't know what software had it. That created a bit of havoc. It kept people up for days just trying to find it. And so when you have, like with food in our recipe analogy, I think it was Boar's Head has had a problem lately.
Yeah.
Right? So the Boar's Head deli meats, some listeria problem, which is, I don't know that I've ever heard of them having a problem. So it's got to be way out there. But, specifically with food, we care a bit on whether or not it'll kill you. Just kind of like we do with healthcare.
Right.
What's in it? Similar with cars. What part's in it? A car gets recalled for a reason. So we need to be able to do that with the software, because there's way more parts than people realize.
Oh, yeah. It's all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, there's code that comes from, you wouldn't even believe it until you see one the first time, like a full one. You won't truly recognize what we're talking about, but it will surprise you. So basically, here's my list of ingredients, and people are like, well, isn't that going to tell the hackers what to use? Well, it'll also tell me if hackers are using something to fix it. I believe that's going to be better.
Yeah.
Because they're finding them anyway.
Yeah, no doubt.
They find a 0 day, they're finding where that's being used.
Yeah, well, the other part of it is, if I come out and say, oh, there's a 0 day on such and such software, and you're like, oh, we don't use that. But you do use it. You just don't know you're using it.
That happens to a lot of folks a lot of times. And it is by far one of the most obscure things until it is necessary for it to not be anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you just take the recent CrowdStrike issue. There's a lot of people who didn't know they had CrowdStrike.
Yeah.
as their EDR. They're like, oh, no, I don't think we have that. And then all of a sudden it's, oh, we got a blue screen.
What do we do? We have that?
Yeah.
Well, it runs hidden. And so, and that's the whole application. And within that application, there are other pieces.
Yeah.
So that being said, that's why we want to know what's in there. And it's no different than wanting to know what's in my, box of Special K.
Mm-hmm.
I need to know those things. And so there's different types of documents that you would get for this, and the value that you get for it, it comes in multiple ways. One is me as a consumer, I know what's in there. So I can know, like we just talked about, oh, something's going wrong with that. Do we have that anywhere? Now I can be proactive and not just wait for the vendor to tell me whether or not they have it, which was really painful during the Log4j thing. Oh, let the vendors go figure it out. And everything, all of them are like, do anybody?
Yeah.
Because they don't have it either.
I'm sitting there running, let's run this thing to see if we have Log4j,
Yeah.
because we don't know.
Yeah. And so that then it helps them because they instantly know if something pops up, what they have in their systems. So the developers, they're called authors in the, they have their own little terminology. And then you have distributors who kind of let they define the standards that, you're not just getting a piece of paper with a whole bunch of stuff on it that you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the good thing is this is coming out now because if it'd been there for a long time, we'd have had a bunch of paper.
Yeah.
Just list, a spreadsheet. Yeah. So they're doing this from the beginning by defining the standards and creating methods for the vendors to, here's where we distribute this information. And you go there and they send the standards in and you're able to see all the things you need to see. They give you what you need. And you can see the dependencies like, well, I've got, a big, I don't know, what's a good example of something? Some people load like Microsoft Office, let's call it. They're not using the cloud version. They load it on their computer and they never use maybe they got the rights to access the little database thing, but they never use it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then there's something and it pops up on your list to say, okay, you have this, but it only is used like way down this path in access. So, okay, we don't use access. We need to get the update. So in case we ever do use it, but now I can better set my priorities.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also helps you see, and in a minute we'll get to something interesting on here. It also lets you see where you should have licenses.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's always fun.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We run into that often where people are like, yeah, but we can put 5 users on one license. I'm like, no, you can put 5 devices on one license. 5 of your devices.
Yes.
So just because you have 4 other employees, you can't cover them all under one license.
And, there are some tricky things in licenses for those little components too. And sometimes there's a license that's supposed to be paid when they're distributing these components.
Mm.
Yeah. And that does probably allow people that should be getting those licenses to go look and see if you're using them. But,
Mm-hmm.
and then people will know. And I'm like, it's kind
I
of
don't
like,
want to tell you.
it's kind of like the time I was talking with somebody at a conference and we were looking at Comply Assistant and I'm like, yeah, where you do all of this and then you can go see all your latest activities, see what you're doing. And swear to God, dude looks at me and he goes, well, now they'll know I'm not doing anything. And I was like, okay, nice to meet you. It was like a whole moment. But I do like that discussion about the licensing is, okay, well, then you would be in compliance instead of out of compliance, and you wouldn't get these. Yeah. It's an interesting thing in the software world, that discussion about licensing comes up all the time. Always has. Yeah. So, and before everybody freaks out, I mean, you got the tools. There are automation tools that will create these things. That's great news. Because you would never have, let me tell you something, developers are really bad about writing things down. Even in their own code, That's why, from a security standpoint, I always say, look, these are decisions you're already making. I would just like for you to write them down. You're already doing it. I just want you to tell me you did it. That's it.
Just comment it out. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, just write it down for me. And dude looks at me, oh, you want me to eat my broccoli? Yeah. Yeah, I do. So we've got all these advantages we understand. And if we can create them, if there are tools that will create them, and you have tools that'll look at the source code, you have tools that'll look at the code that's actually running during runtime and figure out all the different components there. You have code that will look at the hardware pieces that are connecting the drivers and all of that. And, there's a long list in these standards that are being built. And there's a couple of different, I think there's like 3 major standards being made. There's OWASP Cyclone DX full stack bill of materials standard. Theirs is pretty extensive. There's SPDX Dev, which is, I think, a Linux one. And then NIST has a tagging system for software identification tagging. So these things are out there and they're being standardized. There are systems being built that will find them at different points in the process, because there are different points where you need to know what's working. Like if you bring in this one piece of software, what you may not know is it then brings in something else. And it's using something you didn't even know about. So that's where it's going to get tricky for the vendors, though.
Yeah.
I got to get an SBOM of my SBOM.
That's right. Yeah. It's another one of those rabbit holes. Like, how far down do you go?
And so there's some templates and sharing it. There's very specific concepts about how it should be shared and how to share the different versions of it. Like I said, you got the runtime version, you got the source code version. There's a ton of different ones, and you have to go through. I don't know, how do you actually using it? Sometimes it's like, oh, that didn't happen till I used it. Or until I clicked on that piece, it didn't launch that other piece.
Yeah.
So not only do I need to have it running, but I need to be using it sometimes to see everything. And I need to automate if there's a vulnerability that's been found. If there's a vulnerability that's been found and it's being exploited, I want to know. So that's what the distributor's role will be, is, I'm going to coordinate everybody. When we find a vulnerability, this is going to pop on everybody's system that has it. So now I know all of them. If there's an exploit being used, that makes it a higher priority. Now I'm going to bring that in. So I'll quickly then know these things. And so if they call them documents, because we still think of everything as a document, don't we? And that's when somebody goes, oh, let me get my notebook. So the concept is, this is going to go from the people that create the systems to the end user, and it'll get there. Instead of a one-on-one requirement here, we'll have basically the same concept of a clearinghouse like we do with claims. And that's what the distributors are. So everything goes in there, and hopefully, that's all conceptually going to flow once they really get it up and running, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the key word there was hopefully, because we know that there's a ton of things that'll come up when you actually start doing these things, and when you start doing them at scale. So again, the big trick here is getting everybody to do this. My concern, like everything else, we know this is going to happen, but if we start doing it now and then it's mandated, you don't have everybody trying to do it all at the same time.
Right.
That's to me, if you've got it down, you're ahead of the curve. If you're ahead of the curve, this is not something that will change.
Mm-hmm.
The requirement of when it has to be done or what has to be included may change. But once you start doing this, that'll be easier to implement. It's building it into all of your processes. So let's look at real quick here some of the other things. So we talked about intellectual property. A lot of people, well, then everybody's going to know my secret sauce. No, I still have tried to make some of the things that I get at a restaurant and cannot, even though they say, here's the recipe. It tastes just like,
Tastes like chicken.
And then the licensing, really the licensing and legal stuff, I struggle with that one. Well, then I'll have to pay for something that I don't have to pay for today, because then they'll know I'm using it even though I should be paying for it.
Yeah.
We'll leave that one there. You're going to be able to proactively, prevent being caught using something without paying for it. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody's like, well, this is going to take so much time. Okay, it is a new process. It will take time to implement.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when we really get people to do a real risk management plan instead of just doing their SRA checkbox and printing it out and then saying we'll look at it again next year.
Well, hopefully all the AI stuff that's coming out will help make this a lot less cumbersome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be exponentially helpful because it'll be able to assess this stuff in a much more organized manner. Of course, they'll be trained to do that. Mm-hmm. But, you got that. And then you have the fact that it's already being automated. It's starting out automated. So what you have to figure out is the easiest way to build it into your processes. And if you have complex systems, it'll take a while for that first initial discovery programs to run and figure this out. Mm-hmm. You're going to have startup issues, but with it fully automated, reading the code, reading what's running on the systems, and generating these things that'll go into an electronic system, once you're up and running, the overhead should be minimal long term. It's definitely going to be outweighed by the value. Plus, imagine all the companies that had to go figure out if they had Log4j.
Yeah.
All it's going to take is one of them, and you'll make all your money back from your effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's part of what this is even for. I mean, when you look at what the OWASP folks are saying, that it provides advanced supply chain capabilities for cyber risk reduction. So that's the whole reason here that we're doing any of it. It's all because we want to reduce the risk that being online and attackers attacking and all that is a risk. Every piece of software you use is a risk.
Mm-hmm. Every device, as I say in all of my, because I got to have all of my little things I have to say. If it connects, it can infect. It's my Johnny Cochran moment in my presentations. But the big issue is understanding there's value to everybody. The distributors get a whole new business. That's a new business. But in the long term, the overhead and the value of knowing what's in your systems is going to be great for the developers. I promise, having tried to figure this out. Yes, it's a PETA to get it started, but once it is, it's one of those things.
Well, there's a high likelihood at some point the insurance companies are going to jump on it and say, you got to have these things anyway.
Good point. I'm not going to pay for you to recover stuff from a vulnerability because you don't know you have it.
Right.
So that is a good point. So if you read up on it, there are, the other thing is, well, now the SBOM is now going to be the target of attackers so that they can use it once they find a vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The source code's already that, and it's already out there. And, we have to store things securely. We have to transmit things securely. We have to control access to it for those reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see how, if it's not secured, that screws the pooch on everything.
Yeah, it does.
So, there's plenty of things that you could find wrong with anything. And particularly something brand new.
Oh, yeah.
But the value you get on the other side of this, as far as managing the risk, I see it as just immense compared to the implementation it takes. That if we had this up and running a long time ago, we would be way better off.
So how do you feel about the other types of bill of materials? Like we're talking about software bill of materials, but what about the hardware or operational and those types of things?
Well, again, it's the same concept. I mean, we run through this with, who has XYZ device.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the devices themselves were already, there's such a push to actually have an inventory so what devices. So you got that level. Then you take down to the next level, and it's the firmware on the device. And, you can't, actually doing the parts themselves, I don't see, you can see a good bit of that, but I don't think that's going to be the key. It's all back to software.
Okay.
And it's the firmware that's going to matter.
Because I know, like for us, you could, for example, if I sell you our security suite, this is common in MSP world where we tell you we're selling you XYZ awesome security suite, right? But there's all these different types of other software and vendors and everything that's baked into that. So we just put it all together and we put one name on it. The one reason why we don't tell people, we would if they asked, but we don't volunteer to tell people what is actually part of that platform is, for the most part, they don't care. Right. But the other piece of it is we want to have the ability to move vendors and not have to notify everybody about, we're not using this backup vendor. We're now using this other backup vendor. It still doesn't matter to them.
Right.
But I don't want them to come back and go, well, your contract said you're using this vendor.
Now, see, what I would say is I want to know that any vendor you use, you're vetting them and you're getting the SBOMs.
Right. So in that case, let's just say we have 5 different vendors as part of our quote unquote security platform. Then we would need 5 different SBOMs to go along with that so that we can pass that on or show the client where to find that information or whatever?
Well, no, it's like having the downstream BAAs, right? I don't need to see your BAAs. I need you to say that you're going to do them. You're going to get a BAA that is as least as stringent as the one you're signing with me, is what most of them say. So now I want to know that you're doing that downstream. If you're going to use some software that, I'm going to get, I want to know you're doing that. And that's the MSP's piece in this, which is something, that is perfect segue there, Mr. Sims. Is the other piece is you guys need to understand how to use these, how to evaluate them, how to find them, because that's going to be, hey, I'm going to ask, do you guys have an SBOM? And they say, yes, here's how you can get it. Well, you're the ones that are the tech people are the ones who are going to have to then use it. I'm doing the management stuff. The people that are doing the actual technical pieces of it are going to have to use those things. And that's where it's going to come into play the most. So I just want to know that you're vetting your vendors using that. And I'm going to put that in my contract with you. So that ultimately, I'm going to ask you, if you create software, do you use it? And if you don't create software, if it's a tool you're reselling to me, are you evaluating and confirming the SBOMs? That would be what I would recommend. And who knows what everybody else will do.
Right. Well,
but
I'll just say, yep, we're doing that.
All you got to do is sign the paper.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Whatever you say, we're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that again is some of the stuff, the process parts. So it's important that those, that are managing these things have it on your radar, know that it's happening, be prepared to have the discussions about it when they come up about, are you using them? Do you pick them up? That kind of stuff. The tech people need to be able to understand how they would use them. How are they going to be created? Are you going to be given the tools so that you could run these, the ones that run on runtime, so that you could pull that on your own? Are you going to have tools that will let you do that? I mean, think about how much better that would make your job. You go in and part of your vetting process is you're going to run these tools that are evaluating all the different things that are running. So there's potential value there. Now, that gets a little tricky in a lot of other ways, but that is that middle piece that I really hope that technical people will start to evaluate. How will we be able to use these things? Because this train isn't stopping. It has to happen. We can't manage all of the vulnerabilities otherwise.
Well, I am excited that CISA is having a SBOM-orama.
Yeah, I know. I love that name.
So if you happen to want to go, it's this year, September 11 and 12 in Denver, Colorado.
Yeah.
The SBOM-orama.
Yeah. So that's where you get your information. CISA's driving a lot of this. They've been assigned the task of driving this. And, the FDA was assigned the task of driving this for the medical devices. And like I said, this has been going on for a while. But we've got links to a ton of information from CISA, from other resources like the Ultimate Guide to SBOMs, and of course the SBOM-orama.
Yeah. So just know that, in your organization, if you go to somebody and you're like, hey, we need to talk about SBOMs, not F-bombs, but S-bombs. And then, make sure they understand what those are. And hopefully you'll grab the ear of somebody and you can present all this information and see what you want to do with it. But go ahead and, get on the bandwagon. As Donna said, jump on early because it's just going to be harder the longer you wait.
Yeah. I mean, start asking vendors because, if the vendor says, yeah, we've got it, are you going to try to consume it, do anything with it? No, I just want to know if you have it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Are you working on one? Because the vendors need to be working on how they're going to get it into their processes.
Yeah.
So if you as a vendor start to see those questions, that would be the clue that you need to raise the priority if you haven't.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's nothing wrong at all with asking the question, do you have SBOM processes? If it's a software vendor. And now there's a whole other discussion about SaaS products and how the SaaS and the SBOM, because they make such rapid changes.
Yeah.
So that was a little tricky, but again, it's going to have to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it. Get your SBOM going.
Yep. Just more work.
Mm-hmm. At least it's something nerdy to learn for those of us who like to learn nerdy things.
Yeah, it is. So there you go. You can recall back in a couple of years from now when it's like, oh, I heard about that. I know exactly what that is.
Mm-hmm. When somebody mentions it, you can be like, a somewhat educated discussion and know that you can come back to this at the point when you need it.
That's right. Yep. Come on back to episode 472.
Yes.
All right, folks. That is our show for today. Thanks for listening. Be sure to share this out. Leave us a rating and review. We appreciate it. And remember, for Donna and myself, the HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
Help me with hip-hop. Let's get it right. Protect your patients. Day and night. Donna and David, the experts on your side. Help me with hip-hop. Let's get it right.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.